Welcome everybody into the Agency Sports GG official Twitch channel as we continue our coverage of the North American Challengers League 2025 qualifiers. It's not a lot of times I'm going to be saying that much more because we are into the final weekend, and unfortunately we do not have the capability to follow Gravity's road as it ended last weekend. So that means we are getting to the heavy hitter matchups, and we brought in the heavy hitting talent here on the desk. I'm joined by the one, the only Golden Gad, and take you guys through Tempest Gaming taking on the St. Clair Saints. Golden Gad, how do you feel about this matchup, man? Because there's just a lot of pressure boiled in, at least to one side of this thing.
Yeah, of course. Here, this is going to be Tempest for St. Clair. St. Clair, went very early on to the losers bracket and has made quite a bit of a run, so they have quite a few extra Bo3s under their belt now. But really, the big surprise here is that Tempest ended up falling to Dog, or Dog, however you want to say it, last week. So they actually ended up falling a little bit early and a little bit short of what their kind of slated performance would have been. So actually they now kind of have to pick up the pieces. There's only one slot left from this NACL OQ, and they've got maybe the easier side of the bracket, but they're going to have to beat quite a few teams this weekend just to make it through.
Yeah, quite a few series as well, but we'll get into that as we roll into the series. For now, let's introduce that Tempest Gaming lineup that everybody is pretty familiar with here. Hoarder in the top side, Kisno at jungle, Dark Wings, the current CLOL defending champion, in the mid lane alongside his slew buddy Aaron on the AD carry position. Manui role swapping to support, fills out the rest of that bottom lane. So, Golden Gad, when you look at this roster, you've got a top side with a ton of NACL experience, some CLOL championship experience, to put it simply, experience in a lot bigger games than the one they're currently sitting at.
Yeah, so that really should put them in that driver's seat for this one. But, as I said, like, their road hasn't been as smooth as they would have liked. And, some of the performances maybe not up to the standard that they're used to. But they have been playing pretty solid comps along the board from the last couple of weeks. Pretty traditional stuff. Either you run poke bot lane with an engaged jungle, or you flip that on its head. Either way, they've been playing pretty structured. Nothing too outstanding as far as special styles or anything like that.
No special styles, indeed. We'll really quickly introduce St. Clair Saints. That is not Warren G in the top lane. That is a Ricky LaFleur, one of the heroes for St. Clair from their last CLOL championship run a year prior. Maddie in the jungle, Flocon in the mid lane. Lig and Miracle complete a pretty potent bottom lane. But we don't have a ton of time to talk about them for now, because if I'm not mistaken, the draft is currently free firing through. So we'll hop right in to the draft to make sure that we get all pieces of this, and we can spend a bit more time talking about St. Clair Golden Gad, because the one advantage for this team, for me, is the fact that these guys have been playing, scrimming together as a collegiate team all the way back to like last fall. So if we're talking like synergy edge, it's definitely going to lean on the St. Clair side. That's partly why I think they've been so potent in their lower bracket run.
Yeah, and if you look at the bans, you're already seeing some specific call-outs here. Volibear and Olaf, in their last series, SCC was able to use that kind of combo there to actually really roll through it, and they love the death ball style of team fighting, where you have a couple of pick tools with a very strong core, and of course, with Ricky being in the top lane, that means you're going to have a lot of those strong unorthodox carries, Adam-esque style if you end up watching him from EU, so very similar to that. So very curious to see what it'll be, but it's pretty standard so far. We're seeing Varus and Ezreal on the board here, and then Leona to lock it up. So some of the most premier picks in the bot lane already getting grabbed up. I'm curious to see whether this will be a engage support or another poke support maybe for the combination with the Varus, but with Leona being locked in, it may be a little bit too risky to be playing some of those longer range supports.
Yeah, the Maokai gonna get locked in. Interesting that with Ashe up, we don't see the classic handshake of Ashe and Varus. I think those two are like the most traded between AD carries, especially at the beginning of a series. So Ashe is still gonna be a prominent pick later on that we'll have to track. Victor and Varus really establish solid, consistent damage range here, regardless of what sort of Varus we're gonna get from Aaron. You've got at least a bridge where this Varus ideally gets ahead early, buys those cheap lethality items, is a big time damage dealer in the mid game, and then you can lean on Dark Wings as Victor to just scale infinitely and be the range threat in the magic damage and late game scaling area as well. So Tempest already forming a pretty simplistic team fighting kind of front to back style with this Maokai adding an extra layer of appeal for them. But there is a pristine pick on the other side here for St. Clair. I think if you went up to debate Focon's champion pool, I would argue his Hui is his most polished champion in his entire pool, and he's going to it in game number 1 against Tempest.
Yeah, maybe not the most orthodox matchup here for the Hui. Victor does actually sometimes outrange Hui, and that's always kind of the harder part about that matchup is, hey, if you're getting outranged, it can become pretty difficult. Things like Xerath have always been kind of traditionally difficult for Hui, but you know, if that's your specialty champion, it's good to bring it out in game one where you can maybe eke out a win and then kind of roll that momentum through to getting the Bo3 win on top of it. So pretty interesting stuff, because usually when I see stuff like Victor, it's really going to be something that maybe can exploit the earlier lane phase that Victor now holds in this one. But no, it's going to be Hui a little bit more laid back, a little bit more control, so that you're able to scale towards the mid game instead. I'm curious whether this Maokai could get flexed. I mean, they're leaving up some power picks on the top lane stuff as like Jax, which, you know, you could always send the Maokai up top if you end up seeing that pick get locked in. You could also send it to support, which is still pretty good into Leona. It's not bad matchup by any means here. We got a Mundo ban, which is pretty interesting. Maybe towards a flex pick towards the jungle and top lane, not entirely sure. And then Nunu, another ban. So a lot, they want to get rid of some of these more tanky options for the jungler of SEC here and just kind of neutralize that pool a bit. K'Sante getting banned out is pretty interesting. Maybe it means that they're trying to counter pick on jungle instead of top lane, so they can lock in something strong here.
Oh, no, they're going to get the Xin Zhao taken up. You know, Maddie, as a jungler, very proficient on a lot of those AP junglers, so look out for that later in this series. I was going to say I like it from Tempest. They don't ban away his Lilia, because it would be kind of grief to just pick this Lilia next to the Hui, especially already into a Maokai. Like you mentioned, you don't know where he's going to be going. Could be a really big tank threat, and Maokai is such a powerful magic-based tank threat. But speaking on that flexibility, we do see the Karma gets locked in here in the bottom lane. That one is got to be for Manui, so we get a pretty poke-oriented bottom lane here for Tempest, and then they bring the extra team fight threat through the top side. So very clear here for Tempest that they want to play early game through their bot side, double ranged, a lot of potent damage, and then they're going to allow for their top side to bring home a lot of the fights off the lead that they're hoping to get through Aaron and Manui.
Yeah, looking pretty good here. Solid bot lane combo there with the Varus Karma. Extremely potent early on, and really can poke out Ezreal, who's traditionally one of those picks that survives lane phases very well. So that could be a bit of a complication. Gnar is a great call out here. Gnar has always been the great neutralizer of pretty strong carry threats on the top side. So I'm curious to see what they'll end up playing here. Maybe something like a Camille, but no, it's going to be Yasuo. We're going old school here. The Yasuo into Gnar. That's reminiscent of SKT's old days. Back in like 2018 era, where they would just pick Yasuo for fun. So that's actually pretty awesome to see on that top side, but there isn't too much setup knockup wise, so it's going to be a lot of heavy lifting. Oh, actually, now I just thought about it, the Crushing Maw from Hui is obviously a knockup, so that's actually a pretty cool combo that can maybe leverage a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to time it right. It's kind of like the Thresh. I think technically Thresh hook, like Death Sentence. If you time it, it's also technically like a mini knockup. Maybe I'm just capping, and this is my old status playing the game. But I like to think you definitely could off the flay, right? So it's those timings. And interestingly, this Yasuo early game last breaths, you're gonna want to likely rely on Maddie getting those 3-pointed strike knockups, single target. But I think that's a great call out, Golden Gad. If you time a Crushing Maw that grabs up like Victor and Varus and Karma in one hold and get that 3-man knockup, definitely will sway the fight. But this is, part of St. Clair's, I don't want to say, it is a bit of a weak point from drafts, but it is also their style, like we've been talking about, is that they are confident getting Ricky on these carry threats in the top lane. But the question for St. Clair always is, can they get away with these kind of picks up against a more polished team, a higher team of pedigree? So Tempest checks all those boxes, Golden God, regardless where we are in the bracket compared to where Tempest wanted to be in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is still going to be tricky. When you're dealing with a little bit more unorthodox of picks, you really could have things slip through the cracks and not pay full attention to everything going on. At least they have some reliable engage on their side. They have the Maokai, they have the Varus, but they do at least have Crescent Guard for Maddie here, which could be really good for dissuading some of those longer range engages that Tempest has to basically execute, because they don't have that great of stack on CC. You can rely on the Mega Gnar, but I feel like walking in to a Hui is going to be pretty difficult as the Mega Gnar for sure. So I could see fights being a little bit tricky, but they should feel pretty confident in their kind of skirmish 3v3s, maybe not a full team fight. I think that should be still a very big strong point here for Tempest.
I think the prevailing point here, Golden Gad, coming from this game one, is that it really feels like the top laners are the X factor for this matchup in its entirety, right? Because like you were pointing out, on both sides, further down the map, this composition, these comps are pretty similar. Both Maokai and Xin Zhao want to play sort of a frontline, pseudo-peel, pseudo-engage. Obviously, Maddie is a bit more damage-oriented, where Kizno's a bit more setup-oriented, but it's similar styles. And then we already talked about how the main damage dealers on both sides are range-based, pretty safe, sufficient damage dealers as the game goes on. So it's really the top lane that's going to be different here for me, because my questions are, how often are they going to get Ricky in spots to really utilize this Yasuo in a fight where he'll get spaced out a lot of the time? You're looking at a Gnar in Mini, a Victor, a Varus, and a Karma. Like, all of those people outrange Ricky LaFleur, so does he go to the side lane? Does he try and stretch the map? And then for Hoarder here, you pick this Gnar to be the team fight threat. You know, you could get a ton of damage down with this Victor, with this likely lethality Varus and Karma, but you got to set up for these damage dealers to really shine. It's really got to be Hoarder whenever you pick this Gnar. The joke that's always made about Gnar is you can lose lane pretty hard, but as long as you get that one big Gnar ultimate, you've played your role right. So a lot of eyes definitely have to be going to this top side for Hoarder and Ricky LaFleur. Even when you think back to these teams, you know, getting created, right? Hoarder, compared to Kizno, Aaron, Darkwings, these guys have been playing together for a very long time. Hoarder is kind of the new piece filled into this roster. And then we already talked about how Ricky LaFleur is now technically the substitute playing in for St. Clair's newest starting top laner that they brought in for this season. Just a lot of cool parallels between these two top laners and how in this game, we're going to be looking to them to really push either of these teams over the edge for a game 1 win.
Yeah, and that's what's going to make this so interesting. You know, there's a lot on the line. This is obviously loser's bracket. If they lose, they've lost their opportunity to compete for that last NACL spot that is, you know, we got like 6 teams right now, I think, still in contention. So 6 teams, and only one of those teams is actually going to be able to grab up that spot. So definitely some big stakes on the line. I will call out one last thing. I totally forgot Windwall blocks Maokai ult. So that's actually going to be a little bit more complicated for the engage here. And also, you know, Chains of Corruption, if that's what you have. So I think it's, 10 teams in contention, excuse me. Yeah, so pretty interesting. I forgot there's two layers still.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? We have time to talk about it. How many games there have been in the lower bracket? Like you mentioned it. I want to point this out for everybody at home who hasn't really soaked this one in yet. St. Clair has been down in the lower bracket since lower round 3, which is, that means they've played 3 best of 3s to get here. They've played 3 extra best of 3s than Tempest. And because it's a 10-team bracket, there are teams waiting not for you after this matchup, but after the next matchup after this. That's how Friendly Fellas and Dog fans, they get that much of a pass having been in the upper bracket finals. So it's definitely one of the most unique formats. And for a team like Tempest, I mean St. Clair in this matchup, to qualify Golden Gad for that NACL spot, I mean, they would have had to likely played at the very least 12 to 15 games of League of Legends just to get to that best of 5 for the NACL spot.
Yeah, and I mean, that's more games than most teams played in the actual LTA. Just for reference.
True.
They had their season cut short, but you know, these tier 2 players really, you know, they got a lot more games in them, and you know, that could really create a mental toll. Each of your losses, each of your wins are going to create some sort of kind of mental bubble there that really we could see how that actually pans out here in today's matchup. And yeah, I'm curious to see whether St. Clair's extra games in the losers brackets are going to be either a boon or a con. You know, it's definitely a little bit scary there. You know, when you've played more, there's obviously more of your data out there. I know collegiate's always very secretive about data. So, you know, with NACL OQ being extremely open of a tournament where a lot of eyes are on it, a lot of games are being watched, you can't get away with as, you know, cheesy of a strategy. You have to just be the most solid team on the server.
Definitely. And Fearless just adds an extra sprinkle into all of that. If you're still unfamiliar with the qualifier format, that's perfectly fine. Just to remind everybody, every series you're watching this weekend is Fearless. And to put Riot's recent update straight to the point to all of you, you better get used to Fearless because it has been so popular in their office and around the world that they are making it the format for every single major league, which means trickle down. Fearless is going to be everywhere, which means if you've been an NA developmental fan, you're actually kind of ahead of the curve. I personally have been casting Fearless League of Legends, it feels like, for a year. And a lot of people are just now getting accustomed to it. But talking back to this game and what we're looking for as keys at Golden Gad for success. We talked about Tempest, early game, playing through that bot side, then leaning on their team fighting and peel ability on the top side. What are you looking for St. Clair to do early and to get a lead and then push that into a win in those later stages?
I think definitely this Ezreal Leona needs to get out of lane safely, if I had to guess. You know, Karma, Varus could really be extremely dominant, especially with a very heavy ganking jungler like Maokai. That could really be a good angle here for Tempest to exploit that kind of 2v2 advantage. And on the other side, I mean, I need this Yasuo to get on board. Unfortunately, like, this champion is not that useful once you are 0-10. I know everyone talks about the power spike aspect of Yasuo, you know, 0-10 power spike, but in reality, you need to get on the board and you don't want to be, you know, falling too far behind, especially if you are Ricky there. So it's gonna be pretty interesting to see. I think mid lanes should be pretty even. I don't see either way going that crazy,
Yeah.
and they have about the same amount of wave clear, so no one's gonna really have the wave advantage to be able to execute roams and link up as effectively. Now I'm gonna be interested to see which of these two control mages decides to actually sacrifice a wave to maybe go help out of play. I know, crazy, right?
Artillery mage players sacrificing waves? I've never heard of that. We do have a pause coming through. Hopefully that one will get sorted out. But yeah, Gold Guy, I think you painted a pretty eloquent picture. I definitely am looking to see how much a Maddie can get done. Kisno is what has made Kisno such a unique player is his flexibility of his champ pool. This guy can his most played and most potent jungler, I would say, is Kindred, but he can also play these things like Maokai. However, strictly, you know, nameplates up, matchup versus matchup, I want to see Maddie get aggressive. I want to see if he can get some invades going. Maokai is just the worst in the jungle at trying to skirmish anything in those early levels. There's no way he wins any fights unless he's getting help from his prio lane. So Maddie, you know, you aren't getting a lot of push in the mid lane. You aren't getting a lot of push bot side. So maybe you lean on Ricky and this Yasuo on the top side, maybe set up for invades. Maybe we'll see him force a vertical jungle here with just how much early game skirmish power St. Clair lean into. It's something to find out, though, as we get through the pause and then the Riot freeze pause that everyone likes to talk about. And we are on to Summoner's Rift. Game 1 in lower bracket round 7, I believe. Tempest Gaming taking on St. Clair, and we are already get a bit crafty with these brush assignments, and Miracle is in a lot more dangerous of a spot than he will ever realize.
Yeah, Manui's just going to walk forward here. Miracle has no idea, but starting the Q there on the Karma means you have much less CC. So just able to walk it out here for Miracle. Being able to survive, but they do get the deep ward at the very least.
Oh, and it begins. The poke battle begins regardless. That monster Q comes right back up. Do see that is a comment taken by Aaron there in the bottom lane, so this is going to be that lethality spiking Varus, which means what we thought was going to happen needs to be the clear objective, but level 1 trading already. Ignite down and a stun comes across from Miracle, and Manui has to immediately expend both of his summoners to survive. That is heal flash down for the Tempest Gaming support, who has definitely been struggling the most through this roster's run.
Yeah, I guess they thought that Miracle must have backed just off of one Mantra Q, maybe not realizing that they could have just been waiting in that bush. So unfortunately going to take a pretty big chunk, and able to burn Ignite on level 1 is pretty much your entire goal as an engaged support in this stuff. So, you know, they got a good opportunity to do it, and they actually did get a bit of an HP advantage early on. So they're checking some of the boxes to be able to survive this lane effectively.
Top side. As much fun as the Oswald pick's gonna be later on, it's not very fun now, especially we don't see Ricky going for that. Sometimes top lane whenever you see the top lane Yasuo's, you know, those Blade brothers can sometimes get away with going Grasp. I was curious if we were going to see the Grasp play, but no, he's playing for lethal tempo. He's playing for those long extended trades for the later game phase. So like we talked about, as much as Maddie wants to get aggressive on the Rift here early, clearing top down, he doesn't really have any lanes to allow him to get aggressive in this early phase, Golden Gad.
Yeah, just gonna have to just full clear here. I mean, I'd imagine just wants to match the pressure from the Maokai early on. If Maokai ends up committing towards bot, then Zhao's gonna be there so far. Also didn't get spotted on the ward that Kizno placed earlier, so they do know that Maddie is somewhere on the map. Currently looking towards mid. Dark Wings could be in danger here, but Flocon's gonna need to set up CC.
There's Crushing Maw landed. Flocon's taking a ton of damage early. Maddie gonna immediately burn the flash. Flashes after a three-pointed strike. Gets the knockup. Gets the win. Becomes lightning. Easy breezy for Maddie and St. Clair are on the board first in our matchup. Game number 1 down. Hoarder coming in though, looking for a trade here on the Flocon. Does have his flash as well, but the knockup comes up from Maddie. They get the double hop coming across from Hoarder. Flocon gets a big shield. Will then expend the flash. So Hoarder does trade a summoner out at the end of the day, sacking a pretty big wave to do so.
Yeah, why is my top laner mid? Kind of interesting stuff there, but you know, Flocon's still able to get out of there. Does have the TP to at least get back in a wave into mid lane as well, so really not losing that much, and Gnar's gonna have to burn the TP very early on, and this is not an Ignite Yasuo, this is going to be the TP, so we'll be able to match this very effectively. Not gonna get the back cancelled.
Oh, I thought he was gonna get away with that. Yeah. That was a good call, old guy. I thought he was gonna get away, but he won't. And you know, that is actually a pretty big break for Ricky, who does just need space to kind of scale up. But we are just fighting in the jungle. It's time to rumble between the brushes as we get the knockup from Maddie. But he is not the first one to respond. It's Aaron and Manui to get their first flash down for Kizno. They really want Lig. Flashes galore being dropped down as Miracle goes after Aaron, but Aaron flashes over the wall to find the first kill onto Lig, and Miracle will follow next. Feats of warfare found by their superstar AD carry, who gets Tempest back to the right winning ways.
Yeah, that was a really well played there, especially from Kizno, able to block out so much damage from the Ezreal to keep Chrome alive. So they keep the crucial target alive, and they're able to come out with 3 big ones for that one. And now your Varus, that was timeout, was one of the strong points of at least this early game, is now on the board fully.
It's exactly what Tempest needed when we watched their composition from draft, especially those cheap lethality items. Getting 2 big kills like that, you can see Aaron already back with that serrated Dirk and has the tier to start stacking up for a future monoimmune. So Aaron, a C-Lol champion, a former NACL player just last split, showing why he is such a potent threat in this tournament as Ricky is going all out for Hoarder here. Burns the flash cut down the distance and makes it a trade of summoners. The X factor in the top lane for St. Clair starting to get the wheels turning.
Yeah, Gnar always well known for having very long trade patterns, but with the lethal tempo, it actually seems like Yasuo might have the better of the two, which is pretty interesting. Didn't really think about that, so I guess that's kind of what he's going for. Grasp also makes it a little bit harder to stack up since Gnar is ranged, so I could definitely get the rationale, even though maybe later on in the game, Ricky's going to have a harder time in some of these team fights with the lethal.
Yeah. Definitely maybe playing into that side lane threat we were talking about Ricky could be looking for, especially taking the teleport right. Can play more towards the side lanes in this one and then teleport into those fights. We'll have to see, because Ricky needs to be a threat in the later phase with this Yasuo pick. For the time being though, this bot lane pressure coming across from the ahead Aaron and Manui does just kind of allow Kizno to comfortably walk around this bot side. How often do you see a Maokai jungle soloing Dragon? That doesn't happen without those prio lanes.
Those Bramble Smashes hurt. It's like 600 damage to the Drake each time. It's pretty good. But yeah, just able to grab that up nice and quick. Xin Zhao is actually interestingly pathing towards bot side. They want action to at least neutralize this wave, and Manui's got caught.
Yeah, Miracle really wants the action here, trying to go all in for Manui. They do have their jungler coming. Miracle is far too low. Aaron should be able to just trade this before Maddie can even get close enough. Manui flashing away to create enough distance. Maddie needs the win, becomes lightning to get the slow. He gets the 3-pointed strikes, knock him onto Aaron, who does not have either summoner up, and gets the shutdown over. Can Lig find the second? No, Maddie's going to do it all on his own. A double kill that he pays for his own life.
Yeah, and they needed to make something out of that play. Committing Xin Zhao all the way to the bot side means you're going to lose the grubs. So they just had to full commit there. And Miracle makes the wise sacrifice to do so, but unfortunately not able to get the gold back into the Ezreal's pocket. Means this bot lane will still not be that easy going forward. And they've given up both early objectives here as SEC. So that's going to be pretty rough. And they're already 1.3k gold down. So I'm already feeling pretty concerned for the status of this game for them.
Yeah, and they will not really have the easiest mid-game as well. They're not a very tanky team. Definitely very easily subjected to some of this poke. It's going to start really raining through once you get those upgrades for Dark Wings and you get Aaron onto those cheap lethality items we keep talking about as early as possible shouldn't be too far off of a Youmuu's off next reset, barring anything too catastrophic. But Maddie is definitely the guy to watch here, nearly at that first item for St. Clair. Gonna get the Sunder Sky done, which will make his dueling prowess a lot bigger. Gotta think, Golden Guy, you just want Maddie to be as proactive around getting kills on the map once he gets that first item through.
Yeah, definitely. Maokai obviously is a little bit more just of a peel engage champion, so doesn't have that much in the tank. So if, you know, Maddie shows up and some of those big CC abilities from the side of Tempest are down, really could do a bunch of work. And yeah, that'll have to be a focus point for now. But Xin Zhao walking towards the bot side again. Maokai also parroting that movement. Looking towards red. I mean, across the board, I think the most notable thing is that Hui is 20 CS down.
That is about to point that out. That's a good call.
That is actually really, really bad here for Flocon. So that's going to be a pretty hard recovery to make. You see the item disparity is just massive.
Yep. This is, you know, going back to what we talked about for St. Clair. We'll have to hold that point, though, because we might have a bot lane fight as Miracle's going all in once again. They're just going to burn through Manui. There is Kizdo off to the side, but the Crescent Guard is going to block all of Aaron's damage. Tries to drop it down onto Miracle. When becomes lightning, does once again hit Aaron, but he's untouched in this fight. True Shot Barrage will find its mark, but the minions are providing complete protection for Mr. President, a.k.a. Aaron, and that means they're going to win the bot lane skirmish 2-for-1, knocking down Maddie on the backside.
Yeah, League unfortunately just hasn't had an easy time with any of these fights. The minions really getting in the way, or even just Kizno full body there just to block it out there. So pretty rough for them. But as a result, you know, Maokai's back on the map early, and the lead that we thought the Xin Zhao should have is just not existent. Like that's a 70 CS Maokai, as good as it's gonna get for that champion. So gotta say it's looking dire so far for SEC.
Yeah, their lane prio is just diminishing by the second. It's only really top lane where we can see maybe Ricky start to get crazy. Bush camps there to try and punish a Mega Nardav Hoarder, who does go into mini. Actually does have to flash over spotting Maddie there, so they do get another key summoner out. But what is it costing them on the other side of the map here? It's Aaron and Manui just taking more plates, getting an even bigger gold lead, and continuing to build that creep scorer lead as well in the mid lane for Darkwings. The point I was going to bring up, Golden Guy, we talked about is St. Clair definitely have their identity, but they've had an easier road. They haven't really faced a Titan of the qualifiers that tested them on their patent champions, and you can just see in this early game what Darkwings does to Flocon's patent Hui so far.
Yeah, the range advantage I talked about definitely going full effect there, making it very difficult for Flocon to even walk up to some of these waves. Now almost 30 CS down, but they find Manui here.
Good flash to get away from the Solar Flare stun, but Miracle still wants to fight here. Chains of Corruption down, though. There's a ton of burst for Aaron, and he's just going to burn it all into Miracle. They do stop the piercing arrow there with a good time stun, but it's only going to delay the inevitable. Miracle goes down. Aaron fights his 5th kill of the early game.
Yeah, they just don't have enough damage to chop through a HP bar from full to 0. And that's happened multiple times now. So Miracle's going to have to play a bit more careful, I think. You got to at least split up that engage just a little bit. Ezreal known to have a bit of a lull in the damage if the W is down early on. As, yeah, I mean, this is just looking rough. Once again, just getting poked down. Now with the stacks online to also get the evolution, so it's just even more difficult. Hoarder is definitely not having a good time, but, you know, keeping up the CS is really all that matters here for the NAR.
Yeah, right, because this pick is just for team fighting. This is for the later game. Hoarder doesn't need to win lane. Going even is good enough, especially with how the rest of the map looks here for Tempest. The pressure is actually on Ricky to continue to press this lead, as feats of strength are going to be secured there as Kizno stays perfect on these early neutral objectives. And once again, I'm going to stress it's because this bottom lane is constantly getting waves under the turret. I mean, I have rarely seen minions hitting the Tempest Gaming bottom lane tier 1, and they might look to do even more with it as Kizno. He's going to pop the Twisted Advance, gets the root down, just setting up the poke, piercing arrow. This might take Miracle out, and it will. Aaron snipes down another target, and the woes on the bot side for St. Clair are just continuing to expand.
Yeah, they're trying to match, but it's just they are so far behind at this point. It's just so difficult. The Youmuu's was completed at 9.5 minutes there for the Varus, and that's a pretty unrecoverable position. I would have liked to see, I know it's not optimal, but just maybe a swap towards mid and just have the Hui maybe go and just try and snipe out some minions, but you're already losing in that lane as well, so I could see why your options are just so limited at this point.
Really impressed by how Bach and the rest of the coaching staff here at Tempest dialed up this draft. It's just completely oppressive, and it's exactly what you want to lean into when you know you have the team that is more confident and has the higher pedigree. We talked about it. I talked about it with seeing Citadel last week. Hold on, maybe I spoke too soon here. Manui nearly caught once more in the bot side, but gets that big Karma shield down to exacerbate the ignite. And Aaron huddles under his turret. Miracle's gonna take a turret shot. Aaron might just get it all done by himself. Goes on a rampage. We flash to the other side of the jungle where it's potentially Kizdo getting caught, trying to go for an invade. They get the last breath knockup, but a good gravity well from Darkwings ends up stunning up both members of St. Clair. Everything going right for Tempest right now as they continue to find kill and outplay across the map.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a good combo there for Ricky and Maddie to find Kizno, but a good flash away. And yeah, that gravity, well, just perfectly placed. Now we're seeing some different lane assignments. Way on the top side, Yasuo in mid. Ezreal still persevering in the bot side, has a bit of an advantage just being able to kite out on them a little bit there. So being able to push out this wave is good, but I'm going to want to see where Ricky ends up going, since that's really going to determine how these lane assignments end up.
St. Clair have to do something here to try and get their footing back from this pretty disastrous early game. And maybe the new lane assignments aren't really working here for Flocon, who flashes into the Twisted Advance, unavoidable, and Hoarder's going to pick up a pretty free kill. This is the Tempest Gaming everybody was expecting to dominate this tournament, and they came to play in probably their biggest series so far of the qualifiers.
Yeah, you're a little bit more comfortable now, and I'm sure people have found their scrim partners at this point. So each of those weeks should be a bit of market improvement here for each of these teams. And you're seeing Tempest really buttoning up after their loss last week to Daug. So, you know, definitely showing off their prowess. Yasuo, I mean, Yasuo just hasn't done much. It's hard to really find anything when you're so far behind him. Manui, a common theme caught again.
Yeah, this time can't flash out of the Solar Flare. That extra stun will be enough to get the kill over to Manui, but once again, they're buying time for the real carries. Teleports coming in. Aaron and Hoarder are going to TP. Hoarder on the wrong side of it, though, has himself in a 1v2 as Kizno might just get burned down by Maddie here. The root's going to come across. Wind becomes lightning, not enough, and it's going to miss off to the left. Link does find the shutdown, though. Maddie gets a big heal, and now Link gets to step up, trying to find Aaron. This will be a huge amount of gold to get back St. Clair. Link just needs a couple more autos, maybe one mystic shot. There's the shutdown found. Here come the Saints looking for a way back into this game, and they might not stop off of those two picks. They may look for the dive, and Darkwings knows it. Pops the Arcane Storm, nearly finds the kill on the Flocon. Will actually get it with the Blackfire Torch burn to get a kill back here for Tempest Gaming.
Yeah, getting back on the board here a bit, SEC, but they're still down in gold after all of that action there. Nice cancel on the recall there from the Ezreal, so they're going to get a bit more tempo generated here, but they're going to lose the bot lane turret as a result. No, actually, Yasuo's here, so still probably going to lose this anyways.
Yeah, I don't know how much melee Yasuo can do. Man, he's really going to try and trade it, but Manui's here to cover. This may just be Ricky going down. Has to burn the flash to create space. Uses the wind wall to block a Mantra Q, and Ricky's just going to die, and the turret's still going to end up falling. Don't know about that one.
You know, there was an attempt. I mean, when you're this far behind, I guess it's totally fine to make some risks, but unfortunately it doesn't work in the way of Ricky's favor. Now, converging on the bot lane, Hoarder and Chrome.
Oh, Aaron cleanses the first stun, but the Zenith Blade's still going to land, but Aaron's able to sneak out 007 style, and he's going to set up for the rest of Tempest to just brawl it out with the Saints here. Hoarder gets the knockup onto Maddie into the wall, and now Miracle's got no friends left in the mid lane. They go all out to try and kill the AD carry, and Tempest makes them pay for 3.
Yeah, the way SEC likes to play from the last couple games has been deathball style, and you're seeing Tempest is respecting that. They're allocating extra people for each and every one of these positions. They aren't allowing anyone just an isolated 1v2 at all. So now they're going to go and take down this bot lane tier 2. That is so much gold in their pocket, and that's also going to be third Drake as well. So they're pretty much making quick pickings out of this game.
Yeah, I mean, Kizdo is going to be perfect 4 for 4 on early objective. Actually, excuse me, technically 5 for 5 with the 2 sets of grubs. He's got full mites. Like you called out, he's going to have them on a near Infernal Soul for 22 minutes in. They have Rift Herald to play for. It's got to be St. Clair looking to brawl, but their composition really isn't designed to set up this Yasuo that well. They are so single target focused. in this game, Golden Gad, that as long as Tempest stays grouped around a lot of these neutrals, I don't see how the Saints really fight their way back into this one.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be crucial that if SEC wants to get back in this game, they need to get this Ruinous Otacon, I presume, because otherwise they could be out of, like, down 3 levels across the board pretty much to Tempest's players, which could really be just the end of the game if they allow it. But they are going to try and focus on Hoarder. But this Gnar's been so slippery, so hard to actually lock down. 3-0-2 currently, despite how rough that lane looked.
Yeah, and he's even going to cancel the back of Miracle, trying to get out of there. Maybe look to brawl a little bit with this Mega Gnar. But just soaking up pressure. This is Hoarder buying enough space here for Kizno, Aaron, and Manui to grab themselves a 6th neutral objective in a row. Hoarder doesn't even need to die for this tier 1 turret. It's just mere scraps compared to what the rest of Tempest are getting across the map.
Yeah, you want the PowerPoint of Leona to easy snap engage on some of these more mobile targets, but unfortunately has to get locked into that bot side, so hasn't been able to find too much. Now Maddie even getting forced out of the jungle here, gonna lose the entire top side, and this feels terrible. Hoarder now.
Hoarder, there's no mana on Lig here, so it's just gonna be basically autos down for the Ezreal, and it's not enough. Hoarder in the 1v2 sends Lig back to the fountain, and Miracle does have the health bar advantage, but doesn't have any damage in the chamber to really fight Hoarder, who's gonna make this 1v2 a problem. Flowclaw swinging over, but it's still Hoarder that finds the kill. Ignite, the only reason that St. Clair end up picking up that original kill, but it cost them a whole lot.
Yeah, building after building after building. Gnar is relentless, chasing down that kill, but now Maddie found himself in a very dangerous position. Crescent Guard doing massive work, though.
He has to flash away, and he just leaves Ricky to the wolves. Aaron gonna punch his ticket to another gray screen experience. Tempest Gaming have just taken over Game 1, making a statement to the rest of the 10 teams in the qualifier.
Yeah, this is a slaughtering for the most part. They're going to also be able to translate the Rift Herald into grabbing up the Otacon, which I think will just be lights out. The extra XP, the extra adaptive force should make it so difficult for this kind of more team fight focused comp to really find their window back in this one. TP coming in now, Flowcon the target as he's been this entire game.
Just sacrificing himself for staying in gold on the map. Is going to burn the flash, but Kizno is fast enough to cut down the angle. Twisted advance range should come across. Good fear, but it's not in time. Kizno picks up the kill. Flowcon burns his flash and his life just to get a tier 1 turret. That's how far ahead Tempest are in this opening bout.
Yeah, Kizno now finds Miracle on the backside. It's just pick after pick. There's nothing SCC can find on this map as their turret in mid also goes down. It's a clinic. Yep,
clinic. The support and tank jungler are finding picks onto the support. Hoarder knocks down Lig on the other side of the map. It's really just one Baron angle, maybe not even Baron needed. It's still 5 minutes out, and Tempest should be able to shut this one down. They've knocked down so many turrets. It's only a matter of time here before Tempest claim themselves a 1-0 lead.
Yeah. Now it's the time when you kind of think about what you want to change for game 2. You know, this is looking unsurmountable for SCC. So I think at this point it's about, hey, what worked in this game and what didn't. Honestly, Ricky looked okay. Hey, that's at least something you can kind of leverage there. And I don't know if I'd blame Xin Zhao for the events that occurred. I think it was actually just how they played these fights. You know, Maddie going way too far forward, especially in that first fight where Varus picked up the first 2 kills, I think was a pretty pivotal moment now for this one. And, you know, adapting from those little things is going to be pretty tough. And, you know, Tempest at least has quite a bit of a driver's seat. And I'm not sure if they're going to maybe try and put Manui on something that's a bit more engage focused, since, you know, maybe that's a little bit less comfortable for someone who is transitioning away from that AD carry position.
It's funny, right? Because when you talk about how many historical AD to support swaps or just any role to support swaps, you can tell which type of support people are more comfortable on depending on where they came from. You point out Manui seems a bit more comfortable on those enchanter supports, but then you talk about a guy like Dardoch, who swapped from the jungle to support for a while, and because he was a jungler, engaged first jungler most of the time, he was always a lot more comfortable on the engaged support. So it's funny to always track how those play out. But enough dilly-dallying. It's a dragon start here. This is Soul, by the way, for Tempest. And St. Clair know they have to make their final stand here, but the range advantage, I mean, Aaron and Darkwings are getting so much value out of their kits that when Ricky finally goes in, he's already half HP with the last breath, and he finds nobody. Flash is trying to get a knock-up onto Aaron, but Aaron just walks around him with the power of the Karma, and Tempest are fully in Juggernaut form. The Arcane Storm exploding onto the entirety of the Rift. Darkwings with a triple kill, as clean as an ace as you'll get, as Tempest ride the wave to a 1-0 lead in our series.
Yeah, Tempest gonna clean up this one. I'm not sure if they can end here, but it's gonna be pretty close nonetheless. 25 seconds on most of the carries here for SCC, but that fight was difficult. Maddie able to sacrifice himself to actually be able to catch that Drake, so not gonna be the Soul going over, but still, that is a devastating blow to the gold, especially now sitting 10k up here for Tempest, and that's pretty much as you can ask for here. As we get a bit of a replay here, you're gonna see Maddie, I mean, this is a very confusing, Maddie actually gets a knock up onto Hoarder to actually let the Yasuo in with the Crescent Guard, which actually gets onto Chrome. They're probably wishing that Chrome actually did get knocked up, but after that, Ricky has to play it out long, and the Karma just so much supportive utility, able to actually kite out there, and Kizno does a great job of baiting out so many resources out of the carries here of SCC, and Darkwings is free hitting throughout that, and that's how they win that fight.
Great game to see from Darkwings, who I really view as outside of near airport, who we can stop talking about because they've technically qualified. The best mid laner left in this entire qualifier, in my mind, just dominating on this Victor. Didn't even really get to be like the full reimagined scale threat because this game is at a lightning scale pace. He is still 3 items with a fully stacked Darksteel, as we see Flocon having to use his teleport defensively. Now we can talk about Golden Gad just setting up for a good old-fashioned Baron and win the game off that, but maybe Aaron getting a little bit too big for his britches, looking for these Chains of Corruptions on his own. He does force himself to get knocked up, but uses the cleanse, flashes back to safety, so Aaron's out. Who's going to step up for Tempest? It's Kizno flying into the face of 4 members of St. Clair, and he's got no help, so he's giving him the shutdown. Maddie does it up Trinity, jungle for jungle, and now Ricky's going all in by himself through the gravity well, does get the last breath, but there's nothing but a murmur coming from this Yasuo as Darkwings trades him out, and now Tempest are on the hunt here, looking for those final kills. Hoarder's flashing over the wall after Flocon and Lig. Goes Meganar at just the right time, doesn't get the stun over the wall. Can Flocon find the trick? No, everybody's far too low to step up and punish Tempest Gaming as they continue to amp up the pressure.
These fights are so complicated. They become so difficult to play out with how spread out Tempest is making it. You can't find a snap engage on multiple members because they aren't allowing you to. So SCC has to find some sort of opening, and you know, it just is so difficult. Flocon has such a hard time walking up. The Gnar and the Victor making sure to always poke if that Hui ever gets in range has really made it so difficult for Flocon to find it. So, I mean, at this point, they're going to need to look for a bunch of miracles. You know, you got Miracle on your team, but you're going to need 1 more, maybe 2 more, maybe 3 more just to actually be able to get back in this one. It's looking definitely extremely difficult. Maybe they can look for a Baron steal, but with Varus, Victor, it's going to be pretty difficult to even walk forward.
Yeah, they're just going to get completely cut out of this jungle. Tempest are so confident that they are starting a Baron with a tank Maokai and a Gnar. That's how confident they are right now. They could just take this purple worm for free. Darkwings will swing over. They hit the mid lane prio. Top lane's crashing into their face. Nothing in position for St. Clair to really try and contest this. They do get Tempest off the Baron. Good wind wall by Ricky to block a lot of damage with a Chains of Corruption from Aaron. Sidesteps the giant wind wall and sets up for Ricky to drop once more. Tempest can just go right back to the Baron and pick up where they left off.
Yeah, now Ezreal on the backside, Lig actually just using the E. If that went over the wall, that would have been a disaster, but just finding some of that damage there, able to grab it up, and they're looking for Flocon. I think he might just be dead here.
Your jungle, Flocon. You are not allowed entry without paying the fee of your life. Darkwings goes godlike, sets up the Arcane Storm to keep doing what it does best ever since the episode dropped. Gets himself a double kill. Darkwings is in his bag for day 7 of these qualifiers. A triple kill all on his own. He's looking for the Quadra, has the gravity well down. 1 more death ray to do it. A Quadra kill to Darkwings as he's cementing himself as the big bad mid laner left in the qualifiers.
Yeah, and the Maokai, Varus, Gnar all claim up that Baron as well in the meantime. So really, this game is all but lights out. They might just grab up the Dragon Soul just to make sure, but really this is just a bunch of bows on a nicely packaged cake. So, I mean, I don't have many more words, Slayer, for this one.
Yeah, we're getting to that territory. Definitely, when you talk about, though, coming into this matchup, Golden Gad, where all the pressure was in for Tempest versus St. Clair, it's a really big sign when you go back to talking about who's going to grab that last spot of 10 to see Tempest on the final weekend, their first game, looking arguably their most dominant we've seen them all tournament long.
Yeah, that's definitely a good sign going forward. You still have a lot of matches to play this weekend. So, you know, getting off on the right foot can really put your mental in a good spot. And, you know, when it comes to performances, I feel like a lot of it is mental. And now they're looking for something here from SEC. They find actually Aaron.
You're going after Aaron. They get the knockups. They get the burst down. Shutdown comes across for St. Clair, but Darkwings is still left untouched, and he is the real threat in this game. Just churning out ludicrous numbers of damage. All out for Aaron is going to end up costing St. Clair. It's too late to go for those single target pick plays.
Yeah, Flocon now going towards the base, but you know, I think this one's just over. The 6 scrubs as well, just supporting that squad, making it so difficult for any entry back in. But Tempest gonna make it a dominant one in this game 1. No real big contest here from SEC. It's pretty much Tempest all the way through and through.
A sub 30-minute game marked by Darkwings going at 12, 1, and 6 in this one. Tempest looking their brightest when it matters most. Take a dominating 1-0 lead over St. Clair. Looks like our stats are trying to betray us in this one, so we'll try and reload that one. But we don't really need the stats, Golden Gad, to paint the picture that was a dominating game 1 win.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much, yeah, just Tempest the entire way through. They really didn't give that much over back to
there we go.
Mindsbreak SEC. So you can see here on the stats, they pretty much had perfect objective control throughout that entire thing. I just think 1 turret dropped maybe throughout that entire early game. And then, you know, eventually they just snowballed that into quite the victory. You have the easy engage tools with the Maokai and the great poke from the Victor, Varus, Karma Core. And when you're behind against a poke comp, that's really where the poke comps come to shine. So I think it was just too much pressure too early on in this game for SSC to even consider coming back.
Yeah, St. Clair Saints, St. Clair College, really just on the back foot. And we talk about, especially in a fearless format, how important ease of execution is for these drafts, especially early on when you talk about how fearless hasn't really warped your game plan in game 1. You can really go for whatever you want. It's great to see the Bach teed up Tempest to just go for playing through bot side. They got a lead on Aaron. They let their top side scale along. They were checking off the boxes here, Golden Gad. And the final one was a game number 1 win here for Tempest Gaming, but there is more left in this series. St. Clair on the back foot for the first time in a while through their lower bracket run. They drop game number 1. They have one more chance to set themselves up to survive the rest of this series. We will go live with that game 2 draft after a short intermission. We'll see you guys on the other side. Welcome back, everybody, to Aegis Esports official Twitch channel as we continue our coverage of the North American Challengers League qualifiers. 10 teams left, and we are trying to find one winner that promotes into the NACL. Tempest Gaming came out with a sucker punch of a game number 1, and they needed 2 golden gad with all the stakes for this talented roster coming from Tempest in a spot they thought they wouldn't be going into the qualifiers.
Yeah, losers bracket pretty early on. They're not in that kind of waiting position that Dog and
Friendly fellas.
Dog
fans, yeah. And friendly fellas, yeah.
Yep. So they're definitely looking pretty. They get to sit out this day and just kind of watch what the other teams are cooking. So that's pretty good for them. But we're talking about this series here, Tempest taking game 1 in a pretty dominant fashion. SEC needs to make some adaptations. They're going to grab the Ashe you talked about in the last draft. Pretty much the premier AD carry for pretty much being the most flexible. That's pretty much the main reason there. And then Zyra's going to get locked in here. So an early, maybe jungle Zyra here for the side of Tempest means that you're going to be expecting some pretty strong, maybe AD threats towards mid, or maybe a little bit more of a carry in the top side. But we're going to just get that Caitlyn on top of it. Wow. So Caitlyn Zyra could be the lane that they end up going for. So I could see that getting flexed down there. But it all depends on what the support pick here from SEC. This is really telling me that Tempest wants SEC to play a ranged support because you don't really want to be playing a melee support into Zyra Caitlyn. So, but yeah, your eyes say exactly what I was thinking, but that is a Nunu, which did get banned last game.
Yeah, it did get the respect ban. We talked about Maddie as an AP jungle champ pool user. And the Nunu was not the champion that I was thinking about. I guess there's potential we won't see the Lilia. What Tempest is saying to me, though, Golden Gad here and Aaron and Manui are with this Caitlyn pick, you know, kind of blinding it into whatever you don't know what the support pairing's going to be for Ashe, which there are a lot of really good ones, is they are confident they are the much better bottom lane and think that they could just kind of take over early and snowball until this game is theirs.
Yeah, you're seeing Ahri get locked up here as well. Pretty solid pick here. So getting away from stuff that could have been a nice combo here, maybe stuff like an Ahri Vi, but they're going for the Ahri Nunu. So pretty early on aggression. I think their 2v2 is going to be pretty interesting. So I think Tempest is going to want to lock up a pretty strong early mid lane champion, and that's one of them. Tristana, that's a premier pusher and also roamer because you just have some priority in the lane there. Now, I don't think this champion's that strong, but piloted correctly could definitely still do numbers. But so far, it's looking a little bit scary here for Tempest to at least find some engage. And with Maokai getting picked in the last one, that option is not available for them come this R4 pick. So I'm going to be pretty curious to see what ends up being the option to actually get some engage on the table. Maybe they'll just have to go for something like an Ornn on the top side to kind of round out this comp so that they could actually get it pretty easy engaged. But I would, with Braum getting banned, it actually does seem like they're kind of angling towards that, since you don't want to allow the Ashe Braum either, since that's maybe the best melee support to be picking in this position.
Yeah, especially to kind of neutralize a bottom lane that was super volatile for Tempest in game number 1. And we talked about how the Caitlyn pick kind of reflects the same style game plan here for Tempest. Dark Wings is definitely a player mostly well known for his mage champion picks here, but he did play a lot during last summer's meta, if you can recall, where marksmen were kind of reigning supreme. He was playing a lot of time in the NACL, really honing in his skills on that one. So the Tristana, you never not trust a guy like Dark Wings when it comes to his champion pool. A lot of top lane focus, though, coming out here for both St. Clair and Tempest. The Jax is an interesting band, knowing you have Hoarder on your side here. The Cassante makes a ton of sense. St. Clair knowing that they definitely have to blind their top lane pick this time round. And it's hard. It's always hard to Golden Gad, with a guy like Ricky, to protect him in this top lane matchup, because you can't play the Cassante reliably. That's a really big blind champion, and look at the rest of his pool. What can he really reliably blind into Tempest, who have really shown that they've done their homework on St. Clair and how they want to play, at least showing from game number 1. We're going to have to blind it.
So pretty interesting. That allows a couple options that really come to mind. You know, stuff like Aatrox is still definitely playable here. I don't know if that's something that Ricky would favor. There's always the classic Renekton Darius matchup, which has potential there, but you know, that one is much more of a skill matchup, and you'll have to see what jungle attention you could get. But with Nunu, there's pretty much no champion where you could get more jungle attention. So I could see that maybe being the pick here, since some of the other picks that he's favored before are either banned out or just taken off the table. But no, it's just going to be that Aatrox. We're going back to season 9, yeah. Aatrox, Renekton, pretty much every game. You know, this is what happens with lane swaps getting canceled. Aatrox is back and bruising, so definitely also having a lot of new build options with some more tanky approaches I've seen on the Aatrox be pretty successful compared to the more damage focus of the past. I'm curious what this final pick will be. The support pick still not locked in here. They don't have the access to the Braum. They maybe could go for something like a Nautilus, but it's still pretty scary nonetheless. So I think they might be going Enchanter, but there's not that many good Enchanters left, and it's just going to be the Nico. So rounding out, they're going to get a pretty big engage here, and if you could get a big Pop Blossom with some of these bigger AoE threats, such as the Nunu ult, it could really create a disaster here for Tempest, but they have so much range, it's going to be very hard for this Nico to actually breach that line.
I do like to see, though, that St. Clair this time around looking up against a kind of similar style for Tempest. I still think they are playing for Darkwings to just kind of farm away in the mid lane, get himself another CS lead, and now with the Rel locked in, definitely playing through Aaron and Manui, getting themselves ahead in the bottom lane and not looking back. This time, St. Clair, Golden Gad have responded by saying, we are willing to play for not single target picks, but when those team fights come around, we won't look as scattered, like you called out. You've got Miracle now on a playmaker Nico. Maddie's on that Nunu that can be a team fight menace. You've got another team fight champion with Ricky. There's still pick potential in St. Clair, but there's also more team fight oriented threats. So I like to see that this composition from St. Clair is kind of them saying, we're willing to live and die by this play style and commit to it fully. The question that I just have is, how willing are you to commit to this, knowing how Tempest have really set the status for what a game's going to look like so far in this series?
I will say it looks a little bit less complicated than last time. You're not having to deal with so many big outrange threats, and you don't really have a great response. There were no big go buttons in the last one besides the Leona ult, but really getting locked out of that one. So they have stuff like Ahri ult. They have stuff like Ashe ult, which could really open up this team comp here. Zyra always is a very strong carry threat, but notably always very exploitable as a champion. If you get an enchanted crystal arrow on that pick, you're pretty much annihilated instantly. On top of that, because of picking the Nico, they ended up swapping over to the Rel instead of putting the Zyra in support. So that actually makes it a little bit easier of a lane. You don't have to deal with as much pressure. Of course, Caitlyn Rel is not that weak, but Ashe Nico may be one of the strongest in the game. One of the more interesting picks I think we could have seen here. I'm just putting out we have some time here, so I'm going to put out a random scenario. Yeah. LPL loves this one combo of the Ashe Seraphine, and I think it would have done actually amazing in this one, to be honest. But unfortunately, we're just going to go to the Nico. We got a bit more of a traditional strategy here, and I think it's really going to have to be, once again, focus on what Aatrox can do. If you can neutralize this Renekton so it's not really that big of a threat, you can really unlock the Nunu to be able to do whatever you want in these fights, as well as the Ahri. So it's going to become pretty hard to kind of breach that line if the Renekton's also powerful, since I don't imagine it'll be as much of a dive focus on the Renekton, more of a kind of brawling with the CC setup from the Caitlyn, Rel, Zyra.
Right. Yeah, kind of just playing a pivotal frontline role more than a damage dealing role here for Hoarder, which Renekton can very well fit into. And on the Tempest side, right, some of the questions that have been asked of Tempest so far since seeing their run, getting them down this lower bracket, we asked, can they, consistently dominate going into the series? Game one was that domination. Another big question I had for Tempest was Manui, who has been consistently exploited sometimes when he plays those engage first support champions. Obviously, we talked about this guy's role swapping, is still a bottom lane player, but into the support role now. He's on an engage Rel. He is definitely going to have to be the pivotal engage threat for Tempest if they're in a spot where they have to force fights. Can St. Clair punish that? Is definitely going to be a big question. And then going back to game number one, Golden Guide as well, we already had a game where we thought Maddie was going to have a lot of control in the jungle early on, be able to gank a lot, but the prio was never there in a lot of these lanes. Is that something you are worried about, even with the Nunu pick being able to really help out, maximize helping out as many lanes as possible, as often as possible?
I don't think it's going to be as rough as last time. You know, I talked about how Victor outranges Hwei, and that could be really difficult to navigate, and Darkwing was extremely proficient at that. But Tristana, as long as you don't whiff your charm in a pretty obscure manner, you know, Flocon should be able to survive out this lane and not deal with too much threat. Maybe not going to be able to match some of the roaming potential, maybe. But also on the bot side, you're playing the double range this time, so you should, in theory, have the priority in this one, and Ashe is not necessarily a bad pick into Caitlyn like some of the other AD carries in the pool, so I could really see it going at least their way if they end up playing it properly. So we'll have to see if that ends up being the case, but Nunu is always a very interesting champion. You know, they have to play the game in a different manner. They have to change how their vision lines are set up to accommodate for snowballs coming out of the jungle. So we'll have to see if Tempest is really practiced on that kind of style, and do these players really know how to deal with this champion that kind of rolls solo queue generally, but hasn't found as much success besides inspired occasionally in pro play.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see, is this going to be an inspired-esque performance, or is it going to be, you know, back to the solo queue grind for Maddie?
And, you know, talking about facilitating with Maddie and Flocon, they are really in a spot where there have been a lot of St. Clair games where these two have kind of just taken over. I've mentioned Flocon likes a lot of those scaling artillery mages. Maddie, his most recognizable champion for me is that Lilia, which is such a late game carry threat in the jungle. They are definitely playing a much different role than they do when they're at their best. And I definitely think that Maddie and Flocon need to be the catalyst for St. Clair, really once Ultimates come online, for this team to find some success, because Tempest have already shown that they are confident that they are going to get ahead early and then just never look back. Maddie and Flocon have to be the start of that conversation, saying, to state that St. Clair is here to play and here to force us to a game 3, because this game could be the last time we see the Saints in the qualifiers until the next set comes around in a couple of months.
Yeah, so this is really do or die for them. They need to make sure they put up a good performance, and I will give out one shout for SCC in the last one. They did a great job of actually finding Manui in a lot of the scenarios, you know, finding the pick, at least with the Leona, but unfortunately they just were too far behind, didn't have the damage. But there were a lot of times where Manui was getting caught in places where you shouldn't be, and you know, if I go back to the Daug series, I could really see that was one of the big weaknesses, was that Manui would get picked right before a big fight or in a pretty pivotal moment where the bot lane needs priority. And if that's going to be the continuing trend, maybe that's their window to actually get into this one, especially with how easy of a time they have for CC in the bot side with Lig and Miracle. So that's going to have to be their window, but it's not that big because you're dealing with stuff like Zyra, who can have a lot of tempo on the map. Yes, Nunu can match, but if a Zyra's full clearing and able to match the Nunu, at least just, you know, half the time, I think it's going to be pretty good here for Tempest. So they got some windows, but it's still going to be pretty hard for St. Clair.
St. Clair definitely putting the control in their hands in this one, but Tempest have a solid amount of answers to kind of play spacing and play their own tempo. They got to worry about Hoarder flying to their back line. Kizno with the Zyra is going to get a ton of value getting those roots down, knocking Maddie out of his snowball charges, catching Miracle before the Pop Blossom come down. And if you're Darkwings and Aaron, you're playing two of the most range-heavy AD carries, especially once you get later in the game. That Tristana passive comes around for Darkwings. It makes it very, very hard to ever touch this Tristana. So Tempest are leaning on their CLOL defending champions to bring home a comfortable series win, because they have to at least win 3 best-of-3s in a row to play for that NACL qualifying spot that so many people expected Tempest to grab. But it's one step at a time right now for the storm that is Tempest Gaming, as we head to the Rift once more from Summoner's Rift. St. Clair taking on Tempest for potentially the final time.
Yeah, I'm ready to get into this one. Game 2 has a lot of surprises in store, I'm sure. The Nunu snowball's already coming out. Not going to drift the right way, but
wow,
burn the
Miracle.
flash immediately. Wow, Miracle wants the action. And I always talk about how Zyra is such an exploitable champion in the jungle, having no movement. Burning the flash early could be critical into stuff like Aatrox and Ahri. You know, potentially Nunu can just go for an early invade. And if either Flocon or Ricky actually ends up getting that lane prio, it could be extremely good to just come over and really harass Zyra out of that jungle.
In lane's terms, support flash for any other role except support flash is a winning trade. So Miracle will definitely take that one. Maybe a pressure point that Maddie can look to press onto, knowing that this immobile Zyra does not have an ability to create a lot of space. Both junglers are going to start on their bot side, so bot to top clears. I like that for St. Clair because you really want to give Ricky some resources to try and get this Aatrox a lead, as he is looking to be the big time threat in those team fights. And you should get this prio in the Nico lane like you were talking about, Golden Gad. So good early game plan here for Maddie, who needs to use as many snowball charges as possible as early and often as he can.
Yeah. Burning the Nico Flash does at least give Manui a bit of a window that you can reliably hit Flash Q to maybe start something up and get a lot of damage onto that pick. So we'll have to see if Manui actually takes advantage of that discrepancy in the bot lane here, as you see Flocon and Darkwings trading out. But that is a positive trade here for the Tristana, and making it a very low HP target already early on in this one. Hoarder now finding level 2 early.
Yeah, he's gonna does not have the stun available. He took the dash, so no Call of the Meek to get the advantage. But just like game number 1, we see these solo lanes really getting into their groove. That is the game plan for Tempest. An early lead and never looking back here with their double marksman. And Maddie just does not have the window to really start punishing yet. It's just too early on for these junglers to have a big impact.
You know, Nunu is a pretty fast jungler clear-wise, but you could already see Zyra up pretty much 2 camps pace-wise. So you're going to have a pretty big opportunity to maybe, you know, gank top before Nunu's even ready for it. So we're going to have to see if that's going to be the case. Besides that, you see Renekton also establishing lane prio, able to get another deep ward to kind of refresh it, potentially. Yeah. Which could be pretty good here. At least Aatrox has intel that Renekton is here, and they might just go on for the snowball there.
Yeah, Link does get caught on this bot side, but we do have a skirmish breaking out in the top as well between our top laners and junglers as Manui goes in for another crash down that does get the heal out of Miracle. And here we go with the late invade. Root gonna come across from Kisno. Flash from Hoarder immediately for Cole the Meek. Gets more than enough damage down for first blood. Can Ricky find the trade here with the help of Grump? Yes, he can. Flashing over the wall after Kisno. The double buffs and the level advantage is in the hands of the Tempest jungler, and Darkwings is the first one on the roam. Ricky gonna fall with one big hop from Darkwings. Doesn't even need it. Another skirmish win. Tempest Gaming picking up right where they left off from game number 1.
Yeah, I think Ricky just got into the heat of the moment there, a little bit too aggressive, not expecting as much damage as the Zyra had there. Goes down, so that's one trade kill that you pretty much didn't have to give at all. You got what you wanted out of that play, at least getting back a little bit of the pressure. But I talked about Zyra's exploitable, but instead they go straight onto the Nunu. A pretty unexpected play, so that's what the early deep vision allows you to do. You have intel on where the Nunu is coming from and what he's looking for, but now action in mid and action in top.
Darkwings gets charmed out of his hop. Great time for Flocon. No flash available as well for this Tristana. So great response from Maddie. He may be 20 CS down, but he's still committing to exactly what Nunu needs to do early.
Yeah, finding a bit more success than Kisno in the top side. Now Nunu also walking up there. Did get spotted out on a ward, so they have some intel. Zyra's going to go for a counter gank here on Hoarder.
Yeah, Maddie not going to get the knock-up onto Hoarder. Looking to try and bring the E-root across, but Ricky's health bar is just completely exacerbated, and they find the first kill, and Kisno's looking for more. 2 levels up on Maddie, trying to use the plants to get himself a solo kill. The Strangle Roots come down. One more W should find the kill onto Maddie, but we flash to the bot side where Manui's looking for an engage onto Miracle. Lig and Miracle able to get a ton of pressure on this turn. It looks like Maddie does survive, but that's still another early game win for Tempest Gaming.
Yeah, had to burn the flash to get out with just a pixel of HP, but you could see how influential, if you've never seen how influential level advantages are, look at the Zyra damage in that last fight. That was a 0-item Zyra, pretty much one-shotting most of Ricky's HP. So, you know, that's just demonstrating how powerful this fast clear jungler is at this stage. And Nunu already 15, so about 4 camps down is pretty rough here, since you do expect him to at least be able to match some of that pace of the Zyra.
And we expected the Zyra to get a camp lead, right, Goldgat? It was just that Maddie would be turning that deficit into more proactive plays on the map, which he's been getting matched on. So Kizdo is winning the expected part of the jungle matchup and then still going virtually even, if not better, in the other category you look for with these junglers.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of surprised not to see like a Nidalee in response. That is something that also works pretty well into the Zyra. Hoarder 2 levels up.
He's also just 2 levels up. There are no rose petals making this a league. Nobody's taking Ruinous Otacon. This is just straight lane dominance from Tempest Gaming, who are looking to have finally leveled up into the big bad form everybody had them going towards when this tournament kicked off. They're already running away with this game too early game.
Yeah, Hoarder just killing Ricky with the aura of Renekton when ulting. Able to take that one. At least Nunu gets a trade on the other side, gets the drag, but it's going to be the Grubs going the way of Tempest, which I could say is definitely what you prefer for the comp that Tempest has picked up. You have the Caitlyn, you have the Tristana, and the Zyra, which are all amazing at sieging. So from a very large distance, they should be able to force it. And Hoarder, this is top lane experience.
Oh, Kizno and Maddie also getting into a bit of a fight here. They have Flocon close by, but this Zyra is so far ahead that the Stranglethorns makes it a fair 1v2 trade. They're trying to catch Hoarder before he can get back out of under the turf. Flocon's going to flash with a charm. They do get Hoarder. A big Kolva-Meek lands across for the healing, but they're going to find that shutdown. So Tempest maybe limit testing a little bit too much now with their lead.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, you know, St. Clair has gotten what they wanted. The bot lane is ahead at this point in the game, but it's just slipping in the top side, which has really given Tempest as much leeway as they could possibly want to just be able to snowball this one towards the mid game and not really care about the fact that the Nunu now sitting at 2-1-1 should have a pretty good job to be able to kill some of these squishier targets. But, you know, it's a little bit difficult now. About 20, so that's 5 camps down on the Zyra. So really this lead is just going to keep on mounting, and Ricky is completely out of the game.
And it's so important that you have this Zyra in the lead. Interesting net shot there from Aaron. Because the Zyra is kind of the neutralizer of this all-in comp. Those Tangle Roots, the Stranglethorns, how much value do you get out of those when you have a Nunu, a Nico, an Aurine, and Aatrox flying at you? You can kind of just one-shot those squishier duelists and mages coming for you as Aaron does not get control of his bottom lane turret here. Flash for flash match by Miracle, but they're not going to find the kill on the Caitlyn they were looking for.
Yeah, still has the cleanse to be able to get away from an enchanted crystal arrow, so Lig just holds on to that one. Darkwings, once again, the focus, going to be able to buffer out of that one. Maddie not going to be able to find much. Hoarder in the area, that's a level 8 Croc.
Yeah, and he's coming for the flank. The alley-oop comes across from Darkwings. Maddie's trying to channel a full damage ultimate, gets canceled out of it by a Hoarder flash with the Dominus Renekton. And Dominus really close to the phrase of dominating, which is still the prevailing message here for Tempest, who are looking to get out of this series as quick as possible.
Yeah, they're trying to make this one a speed run. Zyra, you know, Zyra Renekton so far showing to be quite the force, and you know, the Nunu not working out as well as they would have liked. Flocon now looking for the solo kill on Hoarder.
It has a big electrocute proc and does find the kill. So Flocon and St. Clair doing a decent job keeping Tempest at bay. They haven't been able to run away with this early lead, getting a little bit too aggressive going for some of these trades and these waves.
Yeah, Aatrox at least allowed a little bit of time to get back into this game. Still 2 levels down, so not exactly optimal, but still at least has a bit of a window to be able to actually just take this one, you know, away from them. So we'll have to see what ends up coming through. Zyra on the top side. No real big objectives coming up. They do have the Grubs second set, so that'll be another 3 potentially over to Tempest. Tristana, Renekton, Zyra all on that side of the map. So yeah, we'll have to see. Ashe is backing though, so they could actually allocate the bot laner down there.
Yeah, an overload. They could look for it. They might have to gamble because I think that the point you made earlier, Golden Gad, 6 Grubs on this Tempest comp is a nightmare to deal with. And we don't see them bringing up at least Lig. He can fire an Ashe arrow from across the map. I mean, I know it's not the most reliable angle of support you can get from the AD carry, but it's better than most AD carries' ability to help when you play for those grubs. Is I Miss Miracle going for the minion play. Does get rooted though by Kizno. Zyra has to use a pop bomb defensively, but look how much damage these Zyra plants do. There was nothing for Miracle to get done there. Once the root lands, Kizno just one-shots the support of St. Clair, and now they can turn their attention back over towards those grubs.
Yeah, but the damage is actually comes true, so they actually have a bit of a foothold on this objective early on, but the Zyra doing so much damage over to the Ahri is going to make it a little bit more difficult. Maddie's going to be able to grab these up. Of course, you do have that Nunu Q to be able to secure him a little bit earlier. Now they're looking towards Hoarder. It's Nico and Ashe on the way, but there's already reinforcements in the area.
Yeah, I don't know if you want this bout with the Croc. He's still 2 levels up on Ricky. Ricky gonna pop the World Ender late here as Flocon's trying to swing over. We do have bot lane showing up to the party here, but Hoarder is just so much a menacing force right now in the face of St. Clair. Flocon gets a pretty big charm, ton of damage back onto Hoarder. Lig's gonna find the volley. Hoarder goes down. Is this the turn for the Saints? Not if Darkwings has anything to say about it. Gets a good amount of damage down onto Maddie, and everybody's just gonna walk and talk their way out of this matchup. Kizno trying to secure the late grubs off the back end of it. Miracle disguised as late, baits Manui in for an engage, but there's nobody to find the kill until Maddie flashes forward, gonna find the first kill, but sets up Darkwings to hop forward onto Maddie. Slows coming across from Kizno. The value of this Zyra continuing to show and bear brutal fruit as Darkwings jumps into himself to grab a double, make it a triple on the hop. Darkwings is back to his dominating ways.
St. Clair just gets way too excited. Again, they go for the fight afterwards. They need to be okay with just getting what they come in for, but instead they're going to overextend, and Aatrox goes down as a result. But trust in your squad until you see something that's a little bit suspicious on the play there. So unfortunately, they're going to lose another person, and that's going to be the first turret on the top side going down as well from Tristana. So Darkwings showing you why a lot of people did rate him as one of the best in this open qualifiers for mid lane here. As now Hoarder catching up the wave. I mean, let's look at XP now. We're still 2 levels up on top, pretty much even in mid, which is pretty surprising. 1 level on that jungle position, and besides that, Manui, the only other outlier here, 2 levels down on support. So levels wise, decently even, but having 2 levels on the opposing top laner means that as far as side lane allocations, you just can't put Ricky and Hoarder in the same lane. They may be able to grab up the second Drake, so...
Ooh, wow. That is Panic Cleanse, Aaron, and then flashing out of the arrow. Manui's going to go back down looking for the engage. They do just burn through Lig, but Aaron's going to be sacrificed. The rest of Tempest don't get there in time. Ricky going to teleport and dash himself out of the pit, so each team trades their AD carries, getting picked off there. But it is St. Clair that grabbed themselves the second dragon towards stacking for a potential soul.
Yeah, good control. Didn't want to opt into that fight, which is wise. So able to just grab up the Drake. So that puts them at 2. So that could really be their win con for this game, but they're going to need to keep it up because I think Tempest is about to hit some item spikes that are going to be pretty scary for most of the players here of St. Clair. But Nunu on the bot side, they want to find Darkwings.
Ooh, Charm lands as the auto comes across. So Darkwings does tank a turret shot. Has to Buster Blast Maddie back away.
Wow, I'm so surprised that Snowball didn't hit. It usually has a very generous hitbox.
Generous is a great way to put it.
But not generous enough in this case, so gonna actually just go down. They're actually committing TP down here, which I'm pretty surprised about. I think this turret's dead no matter what, with just 1 Buster shot from the Tristana. Just able to auto a couple times, just dead. So very strange TP there, but I guess there are no big objectives coming up for a couple minutes, so you do have that allowance.
Feats of Strength were already secured by Tempest when they took their first tower off of those Feats of Warfare. And speaking on those items, the mid lane discrepancy is very much there. You've got the top lane one as well. Might have a pick on the Darkwings though. Speaking on that mid lane spot, Darkwings going to use his hop, but the snowball is coming for you, buddy. The big avalanche sets up Flocon for a big shutdown, but the ace in the hole, great use of the ult from Maddie to get the shield. So felt like a bona fide trade, but St. Clair are still able to find pick plays like their comp dictates.
Yeah, this is not your collector Caitlyn anymore. This is Yuntal's. Does not have that ultimate damage that you do expect most of the time from that side. So a little bit interesting here. Miracle catching up this wave on the mid lane. Lig looking for the ult. Ooh. It's gonna go completely wide there. A little bit of comet action. in the mid lane. Renekton on the top side, now getting forced away maybe by the Nunu. But the control of this side of the map has just been Tempest ever since. Miracle finds the ult.
Miracle, yep, gets it on down to Aaron, sets up Lig. The minion bait works once more. Great recognition from the St. Clair support to punish the summoner timers on Aaron. And they might be looking for more here. Manui gonna have to crash over this wall. Root gonna land though. Can Maddie make the bend? Yes, he can. Somehow gets the snowball around the wall and hits Horderus to pop the Dominus. But this ass is charging up on that range focus. Won't be able to find a second kill, but St. Clair definitely looking competitive in the mid game.
Yeah, keeping the forces of Tempest at arm's length is exactly where St. Clair wants them. So they're making a bit of a game out of this one. It was looking pretty dire, but now, you know, they're still 3k gold down, but they've found themselves a Rift Herald, which is a little bit early, so you're not going to be able to translate that into something like an Otacon, but it could get some of this standing gold back into St. Clair's pocket to be able to at least match some of the pressure. But Darkwings taking down this bot lane turret is going to be pretty massive. That Tristana is going to be at that infinity edge. ASAP Rocky.
ASAP expedited shipping, and it's going to be a big spot for them, but still a lot of value in Tempest in their ability to disengage a lot of these pick plays. As I say that, the Order does have to burn his flash away from a well-timed Flowcon charm. Tempest are overloading towards this mid and bot side to try and trade more valuable turrets out. Might look for a potential dive here, but Miracle spots it out thanks to that hawk shot. So St. Clair doing a good job recognizing when they have avenues to go for picks and when they can't, as they do on brand use their snowball and ash arrow to zero effect there. So definitely can't look for anything now for a bit, St. Clair. They might have to give up this dragon stacking they've been playing so aggressively for.
And Renekton also going for a recall here on the top side. I mean, I will say Darkwings hasn't backed yet, so still sitting on probably a ton of gold at this point. So definitely gonna need to see that come through before this drag does come in, as now they're finding Chrome again. Has to burn flash again, 2 in a row. Manui now looks for engage.
Ooh, turn with the Magnet Storm. Tons of damage on a Miracle. It's Kisno Zyra that just blows St. Clair out of the water into smithereens. And Hoarder able to churn up even more positive traits into Ricky. The X factor of this game is definitely Kisno. When he's there in fights, Tempest look dominating. St. Clair only able to find avenues without the Zyra available.
Yeah, this is looking pretty scary here. Kisno now zoning away from even the possibility of contesting this Drake as Darkwing claims up another turret. I think that's four Darkwings, so I mean, that's all 4 actually. So pretty much catching all of that local gold for your Tristana means there's no signs of stopping. Sitting at level 12 right now. Ari at least able to match that so far, but I'm gonna need to see something.
Items.
Yeah, that's okay, that's for sure, but at least level-wise, catching similar amounts of minions. Everything else, though, not even close. Yeah, but I was going to say, Ricky, I think, really has to kind of show up here. Yeah, you're down, but we've seen crazier things with Aatrox before, has the Sundered Sky at the very least, and I think despite the disadvantage, still is very influential for some of these fights to be able to get some CC onto the backline that has been so elusive for Tempest.
And he's really the big scaling damage teamfight threat, right? You have an Ashe in the 80 carry role, which can do reliable damage after powering up in a fight, but mostly there for pick plays with the ultimate. Ari also kind of a facilitator, single target burst damage. So Ricky being behind may be very problematic for St. Clair once we get into those team fights. You're really relying on Miracle and Maddie to find multiple AoEs with their ultimates. As the Ash Arrow does land on a Hoarder, they get a tier 2 turret down. Dominus pop for Hoarder. Big heal comes across. Manui with the crash out, trying to buy space, but Lig gets the free hit. Pop Blossom comes out late, but onto Manui as well. That is a tier 2 turret and 2 kills to 1 for St. Clair. They are not going quietly out of this tournament.
Yeah, not bad at all, but once again, Tempest on the cross map, so proficient at finding stuff. Just because Aatrox is such a weak side right now, they have to give it up as soon as Tristana and Zyra show up on that side. So despite how good that play was, the gold is still not that much swinging back towards SEC. So yeah, I mean, this is very, very dangerous position now. Another turret getting forced down.
Oh, Ricky Could look for a way in here, but he's actually getting jumped off by Darkwings. Rollander comes out. Darkwings does get the reset off his E passive, but Ricky wants him hunting after. The Stranglethorns are too late. Darkwings now going down to the might of St. Clair as they chase down another kill.
Pretty interesting play there from Darkwings, really overestimating the survivability tools of the Tristana there. Gets taken down, Miracle gets stunned up. That's the real one.
Yeah, that is the real one. The clone does provide a bit of space. He does have to burn the heal. No reliable damage here on this front line. And with Hoarder jumping onto Flocon with no Spirit Rush, St. Clair have to be careful. Bend around the Renekton. Maddie does play. Hoarder will not find anything further.
Yeah, now with Ruinous Atacon up, I think they're just going to go for that one in just a little bit. They have a lot of damage to be able to take down that buff, but we're seeing pings towards that side from St. Clair. They have some idea that that'll be the next objective on the board here. Dragon's still 2 minutes away, and since, you know, SCC failed to grab the last Drake, it doesn't put them at soul point early on, so they're going to have to grind out a couple more if they want to get back some of that advantage. Manui sitting in this brush, no idea right now. Okay, now Miracle spots him out, so the flank is nullified a little bit.
Good double root. Might have saved St. Clair and engage. Because for as ultimate oriented they are with this Nico, they are pretty squishy, right? As pick oriented as their comp is, they are actually just as, if not more, susceptible to getting singled out prior to some of these big neutrals.
Oh, Ash Arrow comes through. Flash out from Kizno.
Oh, and Flocon knows he's hunting down with the Spirit Rush, gets the charm. Maddie's there. Gonna have to use the stasis. Ace in the hole coming over top. Hoarder flashing to try burn through Maddie, but they've gotten Kizno. The raid boss for Tempest is down. They have the Pop Blossom to drop Hoarder as well. Darkwings' teleport is too late. Here come the Saints, but Darkwings looking for the X Factor. Flashes after Miracle. Gets one hop reset. Big time buster shot to the face of Lig. Flocon has to flash over his own Q to find the trade. Darkwings does as much as he can, but it's still St. Clair finding maybe their biggest team fight win of the tournament so far by narrow margins.
Yeah, they find the layered attack there onto Tempest to be able to pick out one member at a time. Kizno and Hoarder falling so early, and they are such big power points. You know, the bot lane is not the focus here this time for Tempest. It really is that top and jungle position, as well as, of course, Darkwings, who is able to salvage a bit of that play, but nice picks there. And Ricky at least finds some gold back into his pocket. So we talked about Aatrox being so important for this comp. At least getting some stuff back on the board is very important for the future of this game.
St. Clair really Golden Gat leaning into that spreading the map ideology. You can see it in the items as well. Flocon goes for the second item Lich Bait. You don't always see that on Ahri players, but Flocon recognizing, hey, in straight up 5v5s, it's really hard for us to play how we want to play, looking for these picks constantly. So he wants to play as much of a side lane threat as he can. The Tempest are leaning into that straight up strategic team fight, but it's not going to help if Hoarder just gets blown out, especially with Darkwings able to churn out so much damage on the front line of this fight. Exactly what we talked about, Golden Gad. If it's a straight up 5v5 with traditional battle lines, Tempest are still too much to bear.
It looked so good, and then Maddie's HP bar just disappeared when he walked into Darkwing's range there. So I think they could have actually just found a pick onto Hoarder there and then backed up and really reset the fight there. But just not expecting how much damage Darkwings was going to do to the two most tanky members of St. Clair. Puts them at second Drake here and another couple thousand gold ahead. Going now towards the Ruinous Atacon. Ahri on the top side, getting corralled. I don't know if Ahri's going to be able to escape without committing this TP.
Flocon is still deathless, 5-0. Gonna go for the teleport, but the Buster Shot was available for Darkwings. Reads Flocon like a book and packs him out for a huge shutdown. The main lead point for St. Clair is down, and Tempest have their eyes set on Ruinous Atacon as the back-end prize.
Yeah, this objective is all but theirs, and they're gonna get that bonus objective stats, and also, of course, those adaptive force and levels, you know.
Look at Kizno versus Maddie's levels already. This was prior to the pedals going the way of Tempest. Oh, boy.
Yep. I mean, these are the most satisfying objective in the game, maybe. For sure. So
it's pretty fun. It's like you kind of just get like turn your brain off and play like one of those ADHD iPhone games everyone like to play. Like it's just just hit the pedals. I forget I'm playing League when I do that.
a little cookie clicker action for sure. Kizno though now level 16, 3 levels up on Maddie.
Yeah.
which Maddie really needs to be getting these levels, because if the Nunu is going to be tanky at all, it's going to be from at least matching some of the level advantage. But I think the disadvantage really was because of Maddie's level. Just getting one-shotted by Darkwings is what's going to happen. So definitely more complicated now. And it's very interesting to see that Aaron is just playing kind of passenger in this one, but that's just how the nature of this game has really panned out. The Ashe Nico did its job in this game, but the advantage on the other side of the map was just so huge.
Darkwings recognizes that he is that advantage, gets the Quicksilver Sash. I like that purchase a lot because most of the spells that are going to catch Darkwings and get him killed are sort of single target, easy to cleanse abilities. You got Ari Charm, Ash Arrow, Pop Blossom, Snare, just snares from Nico in general. Darkwings itemizing, recognizing that they don't win fights unless he is able to maximize his damage profile.
Yep. Now they're going to set up on this Drake. This is the one thing Caitlyn does well.
Manui now. Manui talked about it, gets caught a lot in Tempest's woes. Doesn't pay too much for it and actually ends up getting a valuable ultimate out of St. Clair as they set up for this Baron play.
Oh, the nice blue ward there to spot out Hoarder. That could have been pretty monstrous for the side of Tempest to at least be able to make sure they get this Baron. Now they're going to set their sights back towards that side and walk towards it, try and bait out any members. Manui,
they got two marksmen, just rip it.
Yeah, they're just going to, you know, shred through it.
Zyra? I mean, this thing's gonna be gone in 15 seconds unless there's an answer. Baron's doing good damage onto these marksmen. Here comes St. Clair. Manui's going in with the entire crash down, but he's all alone. He's gonna get traded out. Darkwings does kill off Maddie though, so Baron is picked up by Tempest, and Hoarder's trying to just churn through them all with the Croc, the Starex, the damage, the dominance. It's too much for St. Clair to bear, and now their marksman can step up and sing the song of St. Clair's demise. Ace over to Tempest Gaming. They are looking to quickly 2-0 themselves to the next round of the qualifiers.
Now Darkwings trying to force out the turret. Does have 5 grubs on their side, so not going to get the second white, but should have enough damage to at least take down this turret and inhib. Maddie is going to need to do some magic to at least clear out these waves to maybe be able to save it, because 26 seconds is a long time when you're playing against Tristana and Caitlyn, but with them splitting the damage, it seems like they will be able to survive. They're going to play for another fight and just play it chill.
I don't know. I don't think we have a replay on that last fight, but I wish we could see Darkwings just blow up Maddie again. I'm glad you pointed out, Goldgat. Every one of these fights, especially around these big dragons and barons, Darkwings is just nuking Maddie with a full stacked bomb, and
yeah,
he dies in half a second, and it's just really hurting St. Clair because, like we talked about, as engage oriented as they are, their front line is almost non-existent with the way this game has gone.
Yeah, you have to find the pick immediately, and with the Quicksilver coming through, you still got cleanse on Caitlyn. Your targets are minimal because look, the Zyra also now has the barrier as well, and now Ricky getting engaged on, gonna be able to dodge away at least for most of it, but the damage.
Just look at Darkwings' damage. Miracle does get a root, but Darkwings buffers it to get over the wall. Flocon gonna teleport right into the face of Darkwings and gets the full Ori combo out. Flocon's flank might have just saved St. Clair. They're gonna run this fight now. Kisno's the only one left up, trying to get as much value out of this Zyra, but Flocon hits another clutch charm. The superstar St. Clair mid laner will not let this series die.
Yeah, they're going to go for the Drake here. They will give up a bit of pressure on that mid lane turret, but a great fight with multi-pronged attack finds the backline of Tempest that's been so scary for them. Getting Darkwings down, you saw how different the fight looks if Darkwings isn't there. They lost so much of their damage. Chrome and Kisno not able to do the damage to actually be able to shred through the Nunu's HP bar. And somehow, some way, St. Clair stabilizes the game.
What's even bigger, Golden Gad, as well, you just talked about the QSS being up, double summoners being available to Aaron, flash up for Darkwings and Kisno. All of that comes off the table in this winning fight for St. Clair. It's hard to understate how much space this win might have just bought them.
Yeah, Darkwings actually has to burn the rocket jump immediately because of a nice blast plant over the wall for Miracle, and you know, Flocon's already there to just capitalize, and all the cards land in their favor. Lig able to stay alive through the Renekton damage as well, or not Renekton, Darkwings as well. So yeah, I will say that was still a 4v5, so they did commit an extra person there. Hoarder not in the area, so one of those strong players we talked about not there, but still. Find your moments and you pick them well, you could definitely still see yourself winning some of these big late game fights. And now you could see a very different approach here from Tempest, very death ball style, looking for a pick. They don't want to give anything away since they just don't have as many resources as before.
They know that they are most potent when they're just front to backing as a team, waiting for St. Clair to come into them. And when they're set up right, they still just ring supreme with their damage and how much better of a front line they have. So they're 5 stacking for this last inhibitor turret, but they don't have Baron waves, and there is reliable wave clear with this Ahri, this Nico, and this Ashe. So Tempest really shoehorning themselves into playing for one big objective. It doesn't seem like St. Clair, though, can really stop the power of Darkwings with these bombs. I mean, that was a 2-stacked E, and it nearly blew the entire turret up on its own.
Yeah, this is looking dire. At least they're able to grab up some extra XP and gold from these super minions that are coming through, but slowly but surely this bot lane turret is gonna fall. The double 80 carries doing them well. The 5 grub advantage as well with the extra might, definitely making it
that is one influential. Oh, they do get the charm, but Manui gets a 3-man crash down. Manui just called game with the snap of his fingers. All of St. Clair eviscerated. Darkwing sent to just free fire. It was looking good for St. Clair until it wasn't. Tempest Gaming back to their dominating ways. Gonna 2-0 SCC out of the qualifiers.
It was all eyes on Darkwings, but really, you should have been looking at the Rel on the backside. Finds the fight there. Manui gonna fall in the meantime, but that's gonna be too little, too late here. St. Clair's gonna be going down in NACL, so we're gonna have to say goodbye to them. But Tempest stands strong in their first best of 3 of this weekend.
And how pivotal is it that when that game started to get kind of back and forth, everyone was thinking, oh, St. Clair, they might find their way back into this one. It was Manui, the guy we talked about, was getting picked a little bit in the first game, has been a sore spot for Tempest, that he gets that clutch Rel engage that we talked about, Golden Gad.
Yeah, that was definitely a big focal point there. Finally making something of that game here for the bot side of Tempest. So pretty strong performance across the board from all the players, and that's good signs going forward for the rest of the week. And yeah, I just come back to my mind, Darkwing's really performing well. I feel like between Darkwings and Manui maybe not performing as positively as you would have expected, that's what allowed them to go down into that losers bracket. But if they're firing on all cylinders like this, you could definitely see them taking it all the way. Now, they still have some great foes ahead of them, but at least getting one name off the list of St. Clair, that consistent force that have been together for so long, as you noted, definitely is an influential one. As now we're going to see Maddie just explode. One, two,
Buster shot.
Yep.
Boom! Oh my god, it nearly kills Flocon too as well. We're just gonna replay back at that Baron fight that really felt like this is where Tempest was able to take control of this game, playing their style. Hoarder gets all this value on the Renekton, Big Cole, the Meek, Sterix, tons of healing, and whenever you have a double marksman comp that gets to free hit, it's really hard to lose games. So, like you mentioned, Golden Gad, Tempest, the simple thing to say is they drafted well and committed to their style, but the more important thing to take away here is that all 5 of these guys who are composed of CLOL champions, former NACL players, look like they were as advertised going into this tournament.
Yeah, I will make a specific shout out to both Flocon and Lig. I feel like they played really good in that game, despite how the chips actually fell. A lot of the opportunities that they got back into this one, no matter how small, were still off the back of those 2 in particular. So I'd say good shout out to them, but they're going to have to unfortunately sit the rest of this weekend out, and they'll have to wait for the next opportunity come a couple months for NACL potential qualification. But Tempest now moves ahead. They're going to be waiting a little bit to see how the other teams go. Obviously, we have their matchup coming up, Dorado or Fisher. We'll have to see who ends up taking that. Dorado did take game 1. Not sure if they finished game 2. Tied up 1-1. There you go. Yep. Quite a banger. So they got it. They have the opportunity to take a bit of a rest here. Actually wait it out, which could be very good for them, since it seems like they were playing pretty much 100% for that one. So, getting a little bit of a recovery period could be amazing for them.
Would be amazing indeed. To give a quick bracket update before we send you guys over to one of the other 2 destinations. excuse me, destinations for the rest of these qualifiers. Tempest get the 2-0 out of the way. We did have another series conclude. Unfortunately, all the Ducky Getters fans, Pepe Lala did get the 2-0 win on the other side of the bracket. Citadel and Respawn are currently in their game 2 with Citadel up 1-0 and ahead in gold and tempo, it looks like, from the quick snapshot I got. So Citadel in a prime position to move on and knock Respawn out. That is a big story that I'm sure people will talk about. And like we mentioned, Dorado Gaming, this team of this really underrated team of a lot of tier 3 guys who impressed in like ACL splits and stuff like that, really making a run against Fisher. Tempest will face the winner of that. We, though, are done here on Aegis. Early day for us, Golden Guy. It was fun chopping it up with you, even if we arguably speed ran our series. Tempest Gaming take the 2-0, keep themselves alive. They are now 2 best of 3s and 1 best of 5 away from qualifying for the NACL, but it is still a long road ahead. Make sure to go give some Aegis love over to Titan Esports and NACL as they are covering the rest of the day going forward. And for now, we'll see you guys when we see you. Take care and keep tuning in to Tier 3 and the qualifiers to see who will be the face of the NACL in 2025.